crazy things happening right now. I blew out a candle yesterday for my birthday, and I wished that Wall Street would collapse. And oh my God, am I getting what I wanted for my birthday? No, of course, I'm talking about the GameStop stuff. Let's play a real quick clip from CNBC because folks are melting down. They're just going into complete meltdown over what's happening on Wall Street.
The reason the market is doing what it's doing is people are sitting at home getting the checks from the government, okay? And this fair share is a bullshit concept. It's just a way of attacking wealthy people. And, I think it's inappropriate. We all got to work together and pull together.
Sorry, who's this we that we're talking about?
I love that. I love how mad he is. This is just another way to attack rich people with money.
It's so tough for them, isn't it?
Well, my favorite part is that these mythical $2,000 checks are being used to take down rich people, but also the reports say that the majority of the people who got the $2,000 checks were actually well off. There's a disconnect. Isn't it a shock that there's a disconnect right now between Wall Street and us? I don't know. Rep Rab, what are you guys going to do to fix this?
Yeah, good. You
in the Pennsylvania General Assembly. Well, I'm on the finance committee, and my first term on that committee, Republicans were having a hearing about the inheritance tax, and one of my colleagues called it the death tax. And I took the mic and I said, "Wait, they're taxing dead people? That's awful. Oh, that's a shame." And he knew I was messing with me, and he muttered, "Commie." And ever since I saw him, ever since I see him in the hallway, I say, "Hey, commie lover." And so what I'm saying is just the mindset of folks who believe that the primacy of Wall Street, the centrality of anything that protects the wealthy class being somehow inherently better or American or patriotic is absurd, because the inherent flaw in capitalism is that it doesn't create more capitalists. So the idea about the American dream, and George Carlin said the only way you can believe in the American dream is if you're asleep, right, is that you can become a capitalist. But if you look at the data show that very few people have what it takes to build capital because of income inequality, of course, because of wealth inequality, which is staggering when you do it across race. We don't own stocks and bonds. The average American doesn't own a lot of stocks and bonds. The vast majority of American households participate in Wall Street indirectly through a 401k, or if they work for a university or nonprofit, a 403b. But that's not the majority of workers. So the majority of Americans don't actually have direct access to Wall Street. And so the Trumps of the world and other folks, oligarchs and so forth, they're talking about the Wall Street as though that is the center of our economy, when it's not. The financialization of our national economy is a fairly new and deeply problematic thing that we have to talk about. And even when you listen to the good guys like NPR, at the top of the hour, they'll talk about Wall Street as though that's relevant to most Americans, and it's not. Of all the metrics you could point to on a daily or weekly basis about what is happening in our economy and our communities, that should not be at the top of the list.
And it's so distinctly the idea of democracy being inserted in our economy that is anathema. That is what gets these folks so rankled up and in a froth, all over cable. And I think that's the same thing when it comes to sort of anti-union policies. And the sort of, the freedom that people talk about is really only the freedom of the right and the extreme right. The idea of democracy in our economy is forbidden.
Right.
Well, Ron, I mean, I can't help but thinking about today as I was preparing the open, Europe. There's something systemically different in our model versus the European model. Obviously every country in the EU is different, but is it because we're so like short-term Wall Street focused? I mean, literally, the quarterly model it's just infused in every single aspect of society, whether it's media buys, which you're very familiar with, or campaign finance deadlines, which both of you are very familiar with, or just, I mean, the way that reporting about our economy functions off of how Wall Street's doing. When I'm in Europe, I don't feel like that's part of the conversation. It doesn't start from there.
It doesn't necessarily start from here, except it does. I mean, the massive amount of kind of money taken since the age of discovery, quote unquote, has been extracted from the global South by Europe specifically. And that money, it's the oldest money there is, sort of in terms of old money, and it's in investments. It's behind every investment we see. It finds its way into the US and other places because it can have more fun there. And again, in capitalism, we give the money itself power. So, it can go places and do things. So yeah, you don't see it here, but that's because I think your big, still aristocratic families, your oligarchs, wherever they are expressing that money from far away. But there's a reason America has more billionaires, per capita than some of these places, though also in that we don't have any guardrails on the system. You just, you make it up and you do whatever.
I mean, let's show that tweet that Walker Bragman posted about Robinhood. Robinhood is actively intervening to try to stop people from playing the market the way, Wall Street regularly does. So the only oversight that's happening right now is from these companies trying to stop regular old folks from getting involved. There's also a lawsuit. This is amazing. I mean, these are just, it's happening so quickly. So there's a class action filing. Alex Peter posted it. The 13th point is really the key point. On or about March 23rd, 2016, Robinhood's official Twitter account stated, quote, "Let the people trade," end quote. They have since disregarded their mantra and have blocked access for millions of customers to trade particular securities. I mean, meanwhile, there are no lawmakers speaking up about this. If anything, it's to prevent this from happening again, because what? The markets are going to be destabilized by folks who are smarter.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the answer to this? There is a Republican answer though. Let's show that slide of the New York State Young Republicans. Is that what they are? The Young Republicans?
Oh gosh.
Oh, you're gonna love this. The Occupy one. Oh, we don't have that. Breaking news happening really quickly as it's all going down. Oh, we have it. Let's play that. It's not a clip. It's just a slide. The Young Republican Club has called for a Reoccupy Wall Street action this Sunday.
Totally.
In Zuccotti Park.
You love to see it.
Wait, I'm kind of confused here.
I think they want to give power back to Wall Street. I don't know. Let's scroll down in that thread. Maybe there's some more explanation.
I mean, I think they're coming out for people trying to invest in, AMC and GameStop. They're saying they should be allowed to participate.
Oh, so these are the young Republicans who want to also get in on this because, God forbid,
they're still in it for the principles. They don't realize that actually they haven't been told in the secret closet yet that it's all made up and that huge portions of our economy are a fiction.
Okay, so this is ultimately the question. I mean, this is our economy, for all of the criticisms of MMT, it's too mystical, it's not accurate at all. What is more mystical than Wall Street? Literally, this is exactly the point.
These two companies you're not allowed to, you can only sell, you can't buy. You're you just made that, if any game that a 6-year-old played with another 6-year-old where you made the rules up that fast would not be considered fair in the neighborhood. And I don't think that in the general neighborhood that is America, this feels particularly fair.
Rep, you wrote Invisible Capital, so I feel like you might have some thoughts.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about my book is people say, "Oh, well, I'm not into finance." I'm like, okay, my book is not about finance. It's not an academic book. It's about how privilege operates in the context of structural inequality as it relates to business and entrepreneurship and the mythology around, all you need to do is work hard, have a great idea and a good attitude, and you can be successful like me. And in the first page of my book, I referenced Donald Trump in 2010 before birtherism, and I'm saying he's the poster boy for everything wrong with American entrepreneurship and the mythology around it. And invisible capital are all the non-financial assets that people use, either knowingly or unknowingly, that is invisible to most other people. And so all the folks who are in positions of power, who are doing things behind the scenes, are negatively influencing the playing field to benefit folks like them. That's the invisible capital, and invisible capital can be used for good. Too often it's used for bad, but it's that privilege that associates certain folks with certain status and identities in society. And this is a perfect example. Like Arun said, we like democracy when it works for us in specific ways. Right. But I don't like, and so part of the issue I take in the book is we need to democratize entrepreneurial opportunities. So it's not just middle class and then affluent people with a dream creating things, but it's everyone who has the capacity to innovate in ways that ideally create shared prosperity. So democracy is actually, we just saw it with the insurrection, right? That was part of the democratic process, was counting the electoral votes, even if it goes against your guy. Well, we don't like democracy if it doesn't work out for us, so we're going to bludgeon a white cop with an American flag because they got in our way of the type of world we want to live in, where democracy is optional.
What's so fascinating about this experience and how quickly it happened is it really does pull back the curtain on, not even just 2 weeks ago with the coup, on their hypocrisy, on their white supremacy, on their inability to recognize that, they're exposing themselves for not playing by the same rules that they profess all day long. For personal reasons, there's a great tweet about Puerto Rico. Now, for just a reminder, Puerto Rico has this debt, right? And they've have incredible austerity for the last several years, as they've been hit with 2 storms. Hurricane Maria wiped out the island, the power for almost a year in some parts, and they've suffered from the consequences of COVID, and yet they still have to pay this debt, this manufactured debt, let's just say, as there's a fiscal control board that's been overseeing the island for a while. Let's put that tweet up real quick. I love this. Andrew Padilla, check him out on Twitter. Reddit just cost Wall Street firms as much money as the entirety of Puerto Rico's colonial debt. Wonder which gets bailed out first. This, in short, highlights our priorities in this country. It's absolutely, it's not just hypocrisy. The way that Occupy Wall Street highlighted these issues 10 years ago, and yet here we are, worse inequality. The headlines of the New York Times today are that who got bailed out during COVID? Not working people, wealthy people. Whose profits soared? Wall Street, in the middle of what is likely to be Great Depression 2.0. And the only reason it's not Great Depression 2.0 is because they keep manufacturing, boosting Wall Street. It's just total bullshit.
Well, here's the thing that people don't understand. And remember, the vast majority of Americans have no direct contact with Wall Street and may never have direct access to Wall Street, and therefore limited understanding of how it works, both in terms of how it negatively impacts them on all fronts, and also how we can impact it. Because what people need to either remember or just know for the first time is that these capital markets, they are public markets, right? They are controlled by the federal government. We decide who runs the executive branch for all those elected positions, who then appoint people to influence, monitor, and ideally improve what happens in these capital markets. So it's the Security Exchange Commission, et cetera, et cetera. They are public markets. When a company goes public, we need to understand that there should be a level of transparency and accountability to the general public. Well, what does that mean for those of us in one state or another? Well, in our different states, we have laws that determine what it takes to be incorporated as a business. And in some states, they have something called public benefit corporations, where you are a for-profit business, but you have a double and sometimes a triple bottom line where you are not penalized and you cannot be held liable for having a mission that is more than just profit maximization. Right now, the standard is you have to be about profit maximization, where it's about maximizing shareholder value. And that's just a fancy term for making as much money as humanly possible without breaking any laws. And
maybe
now we have, right? But if the laws are inherently problematic, then even doing it legally doesn't actually help us. So if from a state to state basis, we can develop a business class and organizational structures that are in line with a more progressive view of what it means to be a stakeholder as a business that is not created for profit maximization and actually creates what I call in my book, community wealth.
I mean, how likely is that going to happen, do you think, Arun, in our lifetimes?
Well, I mean, I do think at the end of the day, it is a communications problem, like a lot of things, which is just that people, ordinary people, don't feel connected with any of these terms or any of these ways of thinking. They just see something that feels amazingly and inherently unfair, and then don't know, but don't have but then are told sort of by people who they trust in their party and other people that we have to kind of get back to normal. It's not supposed to be this way, and sort of explaining to people that it is supposed to be this way, and that's why we have to change it. It's just a much bigger proposition. And it does sort of start to sound like political revolution, this, that, the other things that are sort of the things people worry about as being messaging triggers. But it's actually just being honest with people and being like, the thing you want everything to be, we don't have that, and it'd be cool, so we should really go for it. Let's work on this American dream thing.
Thanks for watching and listening to The Nomiki Show. But remember to click like and subscribe on YouTube, and please share on social media. If you're not already a patron, please join us for as low as $5 a month on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show for early and special content. That investment makes a huge difference. We are not corporate media raking in the dough. It's really you guys that are keeping us going. So please consider being a patron. And to our current patrons, thank you so much. We are incredibly grateful to you. We also now have swag. So check us out on thenomikishow.com to get your mugs, your totes, and your stickers.